Revealed. How a mocked black single-dad janitor's heartwarming helicopter flight transformed his community. Darnell stood in the empty gym, the lingering excitement of the school's event fading like the last notes of a distant song. To others, he was just a janitor, a man whose worth seemed measured by a mop and broom. But to his two kids, Kai and Mia, he was their hero, the one who fought every day to keep their lives filled with love, laughter, and hope. As he swept the floor, dreams and doubts battled for space in his mind. Could he really take his children on a helicopter ride? The thought made his heart race, filling him with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. His modest apartment was a sanctuary of joy amid a city laden with struggles. The sound of laughter echoed through the narrow rooms as they played together, each moment a fleeting reminder of the life they were building. But Darnell often felt the stares from others, the whispers of judgment for what he did. Yet he knew that respect and hard work were far more valuable than any title. Just then, he crossed paths with Mr. Thompson, a warm-hearted retired veteran who ran a charity aimed at uplifting local families. "Darnell," he said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder, "we want to celebrate the spirit of our community. How about a helicopter ride for you and your kids?" Darnell felt a rush of excitement, but shadows of doubt clouded his joy. Could he accept such an opportunity? Was he deserving of such a gift? As the launch day arrived, Darnell's heart thumped louder than the choppers overhead. The site was alive with the squeals of excited kids and hopeful parents, a whirlwind of color and hope. But for him, that thrill was marred by the ghosts of his past debt, depression, and all the times he felt unworthy. The roar of the helicopter engines drowned his doubts momentarily, and he imagined what it would feel like to rise above it all. Strapped into their seats with Kai and Mia, Darnell clutched their hands tightly, feeling the winds of change, quite literally, sweep beneath them. As the helicopter ascended, he looked down at the streets he had walked, the same cracked pavements and broken dreams he wished to fix. Suddenly, it all became clearer. The moments of struggle he faced transformed into symbols of resilience. As the helicopter hovered over the city, their view widened, and Darnell realized he wasn't just a janitor. He was a beacon of hope for his children and community. The flight wasn't just an escape. It was a reminder that they were more than their circumstances. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When they finally landed, the world felt different. Darnell gathered the community, frayed hearts filled with excitement and curiosity. "Let us share our stories," he encouraged, his voice steady, hopeful. "We've all faced tough times, but together, we can rise." Yet the air was thick with uncertainty. Would his people embrace this call for connection and healing, or would old prejudices hold them back? As the crowd gathered, their faces painted with mixed expressions of hope and skepticism, Darnell braced himself. Could he lead them into a new era of shared strength? Or would his own insecurities draw them back to silence? The echo of their dreams hung in the air, waiting for him to ignite the spark that could change everything. Community. Darnell stood before the gathering, heart pounding like the last notes of that thrilling helicopter ride. He could see faces illuminated by hope, but also marked by doubt. Kids fidgeted, adults whispered amongst themselves, and the weight of 100 unspoken questions pressed down. "Let us start with some laughter." Darnell's voice rang out, breaking the tension. He chuckled softly, trying to summon the joy that had carried him through tough nights. "What do you get when you cross a janitor with a helicopter?" The crowd, still unsure, turned their heads, curious. An elevated perspective. A few chuckles broke the silence. Darnell smiled, knowing the small win mattered. Kai and Mia giggled beside him, their laughter pure and bright. That laughter was like a beacon calling out to others to join in. Darnell took another deep breath. "Look, I know life can feel heavy," he continued, grounding himself with those familiar words of sincerity. "But together, we can lift each other up. Just like we flew high above this city today," he pointed up, We can rise above those things that try to hold us down. A middle-aged woman from the back stepped forward. Her arms were crossed tightly, a shell of skepticism surrounding her. "What do you know about our struggles, Darnell?" she asked, her voice sharp but not unkind. "You have those kids with you. The ride was a gift. What are you doing that the rest of us aren't?" His chest tightened. She had every right to question, but her words cut deeper than he anticipated. "You're right," Darnell said, sincerity pouring out. "These kids inspire me every day. Their dreams push me to fight harder." A few heads nodded, and he continued, "But I've struggled too. I felt that weight. I know what it's like to lay in bed wondering if I'll have enough for tomorrow. I know what it means to be judged for how I provide for my family. I've been there." The woman's gaze softened slightly, uncertainty mingling with the challenge. "I'm here to tell you that we don't have to do this alone anymore. Let's take our worries and turn them into ambitions. We can lend each other strength." He paused, scanning the crowd, seeking connection. "We all have dreams buried in our souls, dreams that seem too big. But when we come together, we can turn those dreams into reality. I truly believe that." Someone shouted from the back, "But how?" Darnell smiled, encouraged by the engagement. "It starts with sharing. Sharing our stories, our fears, our victories. We need to build this community together, brick by brick." Murmurs spread throughout, the weight of negativity slowly lifting. As the crowd began to talk among themselves, voices rising with hope and possibility, Darnell felt a surge of warmth. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. The beginnings of something transformative, something that could heal old wounds. But just as a sense of unity began to bloom, the loud ping of the emergency alert system echoed through the park, a startling reminder of the world outside their efforts. "Stay safe, everyone," Darnell urged, a frown knitting his brow. "Remember, this is just one step. No matter what happens next, let us keep lifting each other up." As anxious whispers permeated the crowd, Darnell's thoughts raced. A storm was brewing, but he was determined to keep the flames of hope burning bright. But the question lingered in the air. Could they truly unite as one, or would fear send them retreating to their corners once again? Would the threat ahead prove too daunting for their newfound resolve? Darnell's hands trembled as he watched the crowd begin to disperse, fear creeping into their expressions like a shadow. The sudden noise of the emergency alert had pierced through their fragile atmosphere of hope, shattering the moment. Kids began to cling to their parents, faces pale and uncertain. The woman who had questioned him earlier, her arms now uncrossed, turned and searched the faces of those around her. Slowly, she approached Darnell again, vulnerability replacing her earlier skepticism. "What do we do now?" she asked, the tremor in her voice betraying her fear. "Now," Darnell replied, swallowing hard, "we stay together. We might not control the storm outside, but we can choose how we respond." It felt like a lifeline he was throwing, not just to her, but to everyone. At that moment, a little boy near the front named Julian stepped up. "My dad says when scary things happen, we should find our people. That makes us brave." His youthful resolve caught some attention, and the murmurs quieted down in response. Darnell knelt down to Julian's eye level, a faint smile breaking through the tension. "Exactly. Finding our people can help us face anything. It's like being on a team. We've got each other's backs." The crowd began to draw closer once more, and he could see a spark in their eyes. Stories rooted in shared struggles began trickling out. A mother lost her job, an elderly man worried about his health, teens seeking something more from life. Each voice, each sharing, seemed to weave a tighter net of strength around them. As the group exchanged words, Darnell's heart surged with a strange mix of gratitude and determination. They were doing it. The raw honesty of their worries painted an authentic picture of their lives, a tapestry of struggles, dreams, and hope. "Darnell, what if we set up a meeting?" the skeptical woman suggested, her tone genuinely curious now. "Something regular where we can share, build that community together?" "Great idea. We could call it Lift Up Together," Darnell replied. The name slipped from his tongue easily, and it felt right. A place to support each other, to dream together. We can work on our goals, voice our fears, and maybe even plan ways to tackle the challenges we face. Before he knew it, Darnell found himself caught up in a whirlwind of energy and ideas. They discussed meeting times, locations, and how to spread the word. Laughter sparked, and some excitement crackled in the air as they bounced ideas off one another. Yet, amid the buzz, Darnell couldn't shake the looming tension in his stomach. The emergency alerts hadn't been a random disturbance. There was a real threat outside, one that made chaos seem palpable. Would their plans for unity hold in the face of true danger? As he turned to address the crowd again, there was a flicker of something unsettling in the corner of his vision. The park entrance, typically a place of joy and laughter, was now filled with uniforms and flashing lights. His pulse quickened. "Everyone, let us stay calm," he urged, but the worried glances and shifting bodies told him they could feel it too. What was ready to unfold before them would not only test their resolve, but challenge everything they were trying to build. Would their voices echo through the storm, or would fear roof them once more? Darnell gripped the edge of the podium, heart racing. With every breath, he felt the weight of uncertainty hanging in the air. The next steps could mean the difference between hope and despair. As the crowd shifted uneasily, he took a deep breath, preparing to face whatever was coming. Would they hold on to each other in this moment, or would they let fear once again pull them apart? Darnell's heart pounded in his chest as the police officers moved closer, their expressions stern and their postures commanding. He felt the heat of anxious gazes on him, and for a moment, he was entranced by the fear rippling through the crowd. It wasn't the kind of fear that silences voices. It was a fear mixed with fighting spirit, a resilience he had to help amplify. "Listen," he said, raising his voice to cut through the murmur. "We're in this together. Whatever's going on, we'll face it as a community. Let us show them what lift up together really means." The woman who had expressed doubt earlier, her brow furrowed, stepped forward slightly. "Are they here for us?" she whispered, her eyes darting to the police officers. "It's hard to say," he replied, feeling the weight of each word. "But let us not jump to conclusions. Together, we'll find out." In that moment, he could see Julian looking worried, clutching the edge of his mother's shirt. Darnell knelt beside the boy again, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You're brave for speaking up, kid. We need that bravery now more than ever." Messages of encouragement wove through the crowd. People began to share their anxieties and fears aloud, transforming their individual worries into communal strength. Darnell could feel the collective heartbeat, a rhythm of resilience beginning to rise. "Remember," he added firmly, "no one can take away our voice. We can choose to shout together or stay silent. We're not going to let fear silence us." Just as he finished speaking, one of the officers approached the podium, her voice low but unyielding. "We need to ask everyone to remain calm and stay here while we investigate an incident nearby," she said, scanning the crowd with a steady gaze. There was no malice in her tone, but there was an urgency. "An incident?" Someone from the back shouted, and the crowd stirred restlessly. "Please," Darnell called out, raising his hands. "Let us listen. They're just doing their job." He could feel the anxiety spike a wave of uncertainty that threatened to pull everyone under. The officer nodded, her expression softening slightly. "We understand this is unsettling, but there's nothing to worry about right now. Just stay together and keep the area clear." Darnell could see doubt brewing in the eyes around him, but he refused to let that be the final note of the moment. "Let us take this opportunity to connect. We were talking about your stories. How about we share some more? Who wants to go next?" The crowd hesitated at first, but then a man stepped forward, a tremor in his voice but determination in his eyes. "I lost my job last month. I'm scared for my family," he began. As he spoke, another voice chimed in, then another. Slowly, they formed a chorus of shared fears and common struggles, weaving together a fabric of unity despite the looming uncertainty outside. Just as Darnell began to feel the energy shift, a shrill siren echoed from behind the hesitant officers. Everyone turned, their breath hitching as they saw a black SUV pull into the park, lights flashing ominously. Darnell's gut dropped. The weight of something heavy pressed down on him. "What is that?" he thought, clarity slipping from his grasp. As the crowd murmured anxiously, Darnell felt the ground beneath them become a tipping point. The moment was no longer just a gathering. It was a reckoning. Would they find their strength amongst the chaos, or would the fear consuming the moment twist them apart? Darnell steadied his breath, bracing himself for whatever would come next. The air thickened with tension as the door of the SUV swung open, a figure stepping out, a figure he hadn't expected to see again. Darnell's breath caught in his throat as the figure emerged from the SUV. It was Marcus, his old friend from the neighborhood, who had vanished years ago. Time had worn on him like a coat of heavy paint, but the light in his eyes was unmistakable. Darnell's heart raced not only with nostalgia, but with an unsettling mix of hope and apprehension. "Marcus?" he called out, unsure if he should even hope for recognition. The crowd fell into a tense hush, eyes darting between the two men. Marcus locked onto Darnell's gaze, and for a brief moment, the chaos around them fell away. There was a richness in his expression, a story wrapped in pain, hope, and fierce determination that promised to shake the very ground they stood on. "Darnell." Marcus looked around, his voice wavering under the weight of the moment. "I didn't know you were standing here. I came back. I need your help." Darnell's heart ached as he sensed the urgency in Marcus's tone. He watched as Marcus took a step forward despite the surrounding simmering tension. The officer watched with narrowed eyes, her hand resting cautiously on her radio. "Help with what?" Darnell asked, his mind racing. Would this be a rallying point or another blow? "There are things happening in the city, things we've been swept under for too long. I wasn't just passing through. I'm here to suddenly." The tension crackled as a second officer stepped forward, blocking Marcus's advance. "Sir, you need to stand back," she warned, her expression rigid. "Wait." Darnell stepped in front of Marcus, heart in his throat. "He's with us. He's part of our community." Darnell felt the eyes of the crowd, all those questions hanging in the air, waiting for answers as they shifted uneasily. A ripple of uncertainty flowed through the crowd. The shared fears they had just expressed hung in the atmosphere, threatened by this new energy. Would they welcome Marcus with open arms or treat him like the stranger the officers seemed to want him to be? "Darnell, please." Marcus's gaze swirled with desperation. "I came back to tell you I have information about what has been happening." "What kind of information?" Darnell pressed, the weight of the moment guiding each word carefully as he sensed the urgency growing around them. "About the jobs being lost, the shutdowns, it's all connected. There's a system in place trying to suppress those voices, our voices." He paused, meeting the eyes of those around him. "They fear us uniting." As he spoke, Darnell's pulse quickened. The fear in the crowd began to morph, shifting slowly into agitation, then into a wave of fiery determination. Heartbeats synchronized, minds connecting. "Look around," Marcus shouted, gesturing widely to the gathering. "This fear, we can turn it into strength. They want us divided, but we can rise together." Darnell felt the crowd respond, a rumble that began at the fringes and moved inward like an electric current. Words of encouragement came flying from every corner, hands raised, fingers pointing into the sky as if grasping for the very truth Marcus was offering. But it was then that Darnell sensed the divide. The officer's jaw clenched tighter as tension spiked once more. "You need to back away," she insisted, raising her voice slightly. Darnell took a step forward, feeling the crowd inch toward him. "That is not the answer. If we're going to change this, it starts now, together." Illuminated by the shifting lights of the SUV and the growing fervor of the people around him, he knew they were on the brink of something monumental. But just as the heat of resolve swelled, a sharp command pierced the air, drawing attention back to the officers, sparking a question in the crowd. What would happen next? Would they stand united, or would the chaos unravel before their eyes? Darnell held on to the collective breath, wondering if this moment would serve as a launchpad for their voices or a barrier to their unity. The air crackled with tension as the officer stepped forward, her voice sharp, slicing through the energy like a knife. "I need everyone to disperse. Now." Her words sent another ripple through the crowd, some stepping back instinctively, while others tightened their stance, eyes gleaming with defiance. Darnell felt the heat swelling within him. They had been beaten down for too long. This was their moment to shout, to lift their voices, and yet here was the law pulling them apart just as they were finally coming together. He turned to Marcus, who was barely holding on to his ground amidst the escalating chaos. "Tell them what you know," Darnell urged, pushing away the sense of urgency gnawing at his stomach. "Don't let fear hold us back. We deserve to hear." "A system has been designed to make us feel powerless," Marcus said, his voice rising above the din. "But we are not powerless. There's a plan in place, how jobs are disappearing, how they're controlling supplies, and silencing our voices. They want to erase our stories. The intensity of Marcus's words ignited a spark within the crowd once more. People shifted closer, each face a mix of anger and hope, eyes darting from Marcus to Darnell. Moments passed, weighted by the unspoken memories they shared, the struggles, the losses, the dreams long tucked away. Darnell could see it in every person around him, a collective yearning to break free from the chains of despair that had kept them silent for so long. He stepped to the side and waved his arms. Everyone, look at us. Look at what we survived. We are more than what they say we are. The officer glared harder now, but Darnell could sense her power waning against the tide of raw emotion surrounding him. Marcus took a step forward, bold in the face of faced adversity. Together, we can expose what is truly happening, but we need each other. We need to fight back. A shout erupted from the crowd, a real, raw roar that echoed through the streets. Fight back. A chant started, gathering strength, layer by layer, until it felt like thunder rumbling through their bones. The officer stepped back, visibly rattled by the energy. Darnell could see her uncertainty, hesitation creeping into her stance. This was a moment they could seize. They were no longer fighting alone. They were rising as one. But just as momentum surged, the blue lights atop squad cars flickered harshly, a signal of reinforcement approaching. A siren wailed in the distance, cutting through the unity like a bitter breeze. Darnell's heart sank. Would they allow this spark to fizzle out again? Stay strong, everyone, he shouted, his voice barely cutting through the roar of the sirens. Don't let fear turn us back to silence. Yet as the reinforcements made their way through the throng, Darnell's eyes locked on Marcus once more. There was something deeper in his friend's gaze, a secret begging to be revealed. Anxiety twisted in Darnell's stomach as he wondered what else Marcus had uncovered. Trust me, Marcus said, an almost pleading note in his voice. You might think this is just the beginning, but there is so much more. In that moment, the sirens grew louder, and a cold wave of uncertainty washed over the crowd. Would they find strength in the face of adversity, or would fear once again shatter their unity? Darnell took a deep breath, the air thick with unspoken promises. He had to know what lay beneath Marcus's words, had to unravel the truth that could either bind them together or break them apart. And just as he opened his mouth to ask the question that could change everything, chaos erupted around them. What would happen to their fledgling courage now? Would they hold on, or would they let it slip away once again? The sound of screeching tires filled the air as the squad cars skidded to a halt. Flashing lights painted the faces of the crowd in sharp hues of blue and red, creating a scene that lit up like a painful reminder of what they were standing against. Darnell's heart raced, every beat echoing with a mix of fear and determination. Stay together, he yelled, locking eyes with Marcus, who seemed oddly composed amid the chaos. Darnell could barely make out his own thoughts as the crowd began to shift nervously. A few people began to back away, their faces painted with uncertainty. Would fear consume them? Darnell felt a surge of anger. This was not the way it was supposed to end. Then, as if sensing the wavering strength in their resolve, Marcus stepped forward even more resolutely. His voice rang out, steady like a beacon. They may have all this power, but we have something they can't take from us. Our truth. Our voices. Don't let them drown you in fear. The crowd responded, some nodding, others shouting in agreement. The chant grew louder again, echoing off the walls of the nearby buildings. Our voices. Our truth. Fight back. The cries reverberated throughout the streets, shaking Darnell to his core. Darnell scanned the faces around him. Some young, some old, all carrying years of stories written on their skin. He felt an ache in his chest, a mixture of pride and despair. What right had he to lead them, to push them forward? But here they were, every single person standing tall. They were a tapestry of pain and resistance, each thread distinct, yet woven together for this moment. Suddenly the officer, a heavy-set woman with a harsh glare, barked orders at her team. Form a line. We need to clear the area. Her voice cut through the air. But the crowd, invigorated by courage, swelled forward, refusing to yield. The tension snapped like a taut wire. Darnell felt the air, thick with emotions, anger, hope, fear, and in that moment, he made a decision. We will not be ignored, he shouted, taking a step closer to the front. where he could feel the pulse of the crowd at its strongest. "This is our city, our lives. We will not back down." As he spoke, the officer's hands clenched into fists, her face betraying a mix of frustration and disbelief. "You think this will change anything?" she said, her voice taut. "You're playing with fire." The crowd provided an answer, a rhythmic chant that flowed like a river, unstoppable. "We're ready to burn." With every repetition, more people joined in, some singing, some clapping, others raising their fists. Darnell felt their collective energy lifting him, pulling him on. The officers stumbled backward, clearly overwhelmed by the force of their unity. Marcus stepped closer to Darnell. This is what I wanted to show you. They can't silence us if we come together. They can't erase us if we scream our truths." His intensity matched the heartbeat of the crowd, filling Darnell with a fierceness he hadn't known he possessed. But just as their momentum peaked, the officers began brandishing equipment batons and shields, cutting through hope with a sharp chill of reality. Darnell felt cold squeeze around his heart. "Are we really prepared for this?" he whispered to Marcus, who still looked full of resolve. Just then, a loud crack rang through the air, signaling the first flash of a rubber bullet. "Stay focused," Marcus said, firm. "It's all or nothing now." Darnell nodded, realizing that this battle was only beginning, and it wouldn't ebb without struggle. They were standing at the threshold of something bigger than themselves. He thought about their shared stories, their collective pain, how it could become a source of strength. As chaos erupted around them once more, Darnell had a single thought. Whatever happens next would either solidify their voices or shatter them completely. Would they have the power to overpower fear with unity? Darnell felt the pulse of the crowd quickening, a frenzied heartbeat matching the echo of his own. The officers advanced, batons clashing against shields, creating a harsh rhythm that threatened to drown out their cries. But amidst that chaos, he could still hear them voices melding into a single powerful force. He gripped Marcus's shoulder, grounding himself in that shared spirit. "Look around," Marcus shouted, gesturing wildly. "We are more than just a moment. We're a movement." His words cut through the noise, propelling Darnell's thoughts back to the faces surrounding him. Each person held stories of hardship and resilience, wearing pride and pain like armor. In that instant, he understood this was bigger than them as individuals. They were a chorus of truths yearning to be acknowledged. The sudden roar shot through the crowd as Darnell raised his arms, his heart swelling with defiant love for those standing beside him. "We deserve to be seen. We deserve to be heard. No more silence. No more fear." The crowd surged with fierce energy, the chant rising like smoke from a fire. No more silence. No more fear. Then came the shields they were imposing, a wall of cold steel intending to intimidate. Sweat trickled down Darnell's neck, the scent of adrenaline thick in the air. It wasn't just the temperature rising. It was the collective spirit igniting a fire within each person gathered there. He could see fear flickering in some eyes, but anger pushed it aside. When the first projectile flew through the air, a rubber bullet aimed not just to disperse, but to silence chaos erupted in full force. People scattered, a rush of arms and legs filling the space, gasping breaths colliding as the sound of sirens wailed like a banshee. Darnell's heart dropped. It was all unraveling, and he felt the panic rise. "Stand firm. Don't give in," he yelled, a sense of urgency in his voice that felt almost alien. "We are not afraid." Against all instincts, he moved toward the line of officers, his feet pounding against the pavement as fury coursed through him. The fear he had felt moments ago morphed into a quiet flame. This was his city, and there was no backing down now. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye. A young girl, no older than 10, stood at the front, clutching a makeshift sign with trembling hands, her wide eyes locked on Darnell. "Are you scared?" she mouthed, uncertainty flickering across her features. In that moment, every ounce of doubt shifted. He knelt down to her level, meeting her gaze. "Not anymore," he replied, voice steady, believing it as he said it. "Do you know why?" She shook her head, and he felt the crowd quiet slightly, hanging on his words. "Because we're together. Together, we are strong, and we will rise." With that, the crowd erupted anew. The sound of their chanting crested like a wave, crashing forward with renewed vigor. Just then, Marcus, standing strong beside Darnell, caught his eye. A silent agreement passed between them. They would not let this slip away. But just as hope rekindled, a sudden flash of light, a stun grenade detonated nearby, the world erupting into chaos again. Darnell stumbled, disoriented, yet determined to stay in the fight. The air filled with shouts of alarm and confusion as people scrambled to regain their footing. Darnell's heart raced, adrenaline surging through his veins. This was the moment where the line blurred between fear and courage. He heard the crowd start to shift again, voices wavering, anxiety creeping back in. "Don't let them take that moment from you," Marcus shouted, but there was an undeniable tremor in his voice. Darnell squared his shoulders, the weight of everything heavy on his chest. Their chance hung in the balance. "We are strong together. We will not back down." He could feel the tension tighten as they faced the officers once again. As the police advanced, the atmosphere crackled with uncertainty. Would they hold their ground, or would fear fracture their unity? Just then, Darnell realized this was the flashpoint that could redefine everything. What would happen next? Darnell's world narrowed to the beat of his heart as he stared down the line of advancing officers. The tension was thick enough to slice through, each breath feeling heavier than the last. He could hear the whispers of doubt creeping back into the crowd, the chants faltering. But he wouldn't let that happen. Not now. Suddenly, he spotted the young girl again, her small frame barely visible among the adult masses. She had dropped her sign and was now looking around, fear etched on her face. Darnell's instinct kicked in. "Stay with me," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He needed her presence. It reminded him of the hope they were fighting for. It reminded him of the future. Darnell turned back to the line of officers, shaking tension from his arms. "We want to be silenced. We will stand." His words rippled through the crowd, drawing renewed energy. Murmurs of determination began to swell, and he could see it in embers sparking to life. He felt a hand on his back. Marcus, eyes blazing with resolve. "Together, man. Remember what we're fighting for." Marcus's voice faced the crowd, filling it with strength. Darnell's throat tightened. It was moments like this that could birth a revolution, and he needed to be the spark. "Remember your stories. Remember why you are here," Darnell yelled, glancing into the crowd, meeting each gaze, summoning courage from deep within. "For our children. For our brothers and sisters. For us." Voices began to rise again, melding into a chorus that sent vibrations through the air. "Together. Together. Together." And then, like a dam bursting, the energy surged forward again. The crowd pressed together, a sea of determination, and Darnell felt every heart beating in unison. He could see a few officers hesitating, uncertainty flickering across their helmets. But as if on cue, a few yelled out orders, and the officers pushed forward, batons raised. Darnell's heart pounded harder. No. The word ignited in him, a reflex sparked by panic and fury. "This isn't what we want. This isn't how it should be." With his arms raised, Darnell took a step forward, a lone figure against a tide of blue uniforms. He didn't know if it was reckless or brave, but he couldn't back down. The ground beneath them threatened to crack apart as fear and courage clashed, twisting around them like a storm. The moment felt electric, taut with possibility. He could feel the eyes of everyone upon him, the vulnerability pressing down like a weight, yet it filled him with strength. He met the gaze of the young girl, her wide eyes reflecting his own determination. In that moment, he was reminded of the hope they all shared. Hope was a fragile thing, easily shaken, but together, they could hold on to it. "Let us show you who we are," Darnell shouted, his voice rising above the rest. The crowd echoed back, an unwavering promise. "We will not back down." As the officers surged forward, Darnell's heart raced, every instinct telling him to retreat. But he stood firm. He couldn't turn away. He wouldn't let fear dictate their future. And then, in a heartbeat, a single voice rang out from the back, quaking yet powerful, a woman's voice. "We are mothers. We are fathers. We are warriors." It reverberated through the mass, igniting a fire that spread like wildfire. The rally transformed into a spectacular wave of voices, rising above all else. Darnell's heart swelled. But just then, a flash of blinding light erupted from the line of officers, and time seemed to freeze for a split second. Was this the moment everything changed? As the world exploded into disarray, Darnell couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. Would they reach the other side, or would they fall into darkness? Darnell felt the chaos whirl around him as the flash of light faded. Instinctively, he shielded his eyes from the blinding brightness, his heart pounding with uncertainty. But even in that chaos, he felt an unyielding strength surge through him. The moment they had all been waiting for was upon them. The coughing from the explosion hinted at fear. But Darnell knew deep down that they couldn't let fear be their guide. The crowd of faces, once filled with doubt, now bore an expression of fierce resolve. He locked eyes with Marcus, who stood firm, a pillar amidst the storm, and they exchanged an understanding this was their turning point. Together, Darnell shouted, his voice ringing with urgency, cutting through the overwhelming fear. We are not just individuals. We are a community. We've fought too hard to be silenced. The crowd began to respond, a chorus of fearlessness rising within them, and Darnell felt that pulse resonate through the air. Together, they echoed, and it felt like a promise to one another. He gestured toward the little girl who had inspired him earlier, now standing tall among the adults, her tiny fists clenched. For our dreams, he added, urging them onward, for our children, for each one of us. As words turned from embers to flames, the officers hesitated just for a moment. In that moment, hesitation shifted the tide. The crowd surged forward, fueled by Darnell's words, each person stepping out of their fears and stepping into their power. Voices echoed through the park as they joined together in defiance, a symphony of triumph. The power of their unity solidified something greater than any of them had anticipated. Push back, someone shouted, and with that, a determined energy swept through like wildfire across the gathering. Darnell's breath quickened, creating a rhythm to match the beat of hearts standing shoulder to shoulder. He was reminded of those late nights mopping floors, of all the sacrifices, of the fear that had once choked him. This was more than just a moment. This was the beginning of a movement. And then, as clarity crashed in, clouded eyes transformed around him. The young boy Julian raised his voice to join the chorus, "Together we rise." Laughter mixed with the chants, and it brought tears to Darnell's eyes. They were becoming a force, amplifying a yearning for change, reminding each other that they carried hope in their voices that not even the toughest situation could drown out. Darnell took a step closer to the officers. "We know our worth," he declared, his voice filled with conviction. "We are not going to let fear take root. We want change, and we want it together." As officers tightened their grips, resolute steps echoed against the asphalt. They remained in place, but were nearly swayed by the tide of passion. Darnell could feel the raw power of their collective stories washing over the officers, making their command feel fragile, even untenable. And then, almost as if awakening from a trance, the stern officer softened, unease shifting on her face. "You're not creating chaos," she said, clearly taken aback. "You're fighting for what you believe." A flicker of recognition crossed her features as she searched the faces of the crowd. Awareness surged through the crowd, hearts keeping tempo. "Show us what you've got," Marcus called, determination coursing through him. "Tell us your truths. Every voice matters." And with that, stories began to flow, details of loss and hope, struggles and dreams, cascading and weaving together a tapestry visible to all. The officer hesitated, perhaps weighing her own place amid their collective strength. "We don't want to hurt anyone," she conceded, her voice faltering. But no more buts. Someone yelled from the back, "This is our moment." The crowd responded with an uproar, more voices charging forward. Darnell felt it ripple and swell, igniting the standing strength within them all. And there it was, the turning point. The fear that haunted them turned into determination, showcasing a united front greater than any challenge standing against them. "I see you now," Darnell yelled back to the officers, pointing to the little girl, the fathers and mothers around him, faces that deserved recognition. "We're not just individuals with problems. We're a force of change." The tension snapped in the air, transforming from apprehension to action. And as the weight of years of silence crumbled, the crowd stood firm. Tidal waves of courage reflected in each face, a window to the essence of their unity. And just like that, The spark they ignited began to spread into flames of hope, warmth, and connection. They were no longer just bystanders in their lives. They were the equators of change. "Let us build our future," Darnell shouted, soaking in the frenetic energy. "We are lifting up our community. It starts now." And in that fiery proclamation, they had done it. They had united their hearts and stories, reclaiming their voices against the storm brewing outside. Here, they would remain steadfast, a movement born from truth, and a new chapter ready to unfold. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow this amazing community. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second. Real fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's keep this momentum going.